Hi, folks. My name is Garish Valley, the host for Back to Basics, another Back to Basics for another week. Today, we're going to talk to you about emotions. We're going to talk to you about how do we think about the emotions between human beings and love and all the emotions that we can think of. Now, we were just talking about this a few minutes ago before the call started today, and we talked about that the life is too fast. How do we minimize that? How do we make that into back to basics? And that's what we're talking about today. And we're going to talk about what she does, what she does not do, and we'll get into the details of that. And, I'm great and honored to have her on my show, Dr. Kinga, and she's an amazing person. I'll tell you that. And if you have any questions, please do message her on her Instagram and everything else that she has done. So, Doctor, how are you? And thanks for coming to Back to Basics.
Yes. Hey, yeah, good morning. Hey, thanks so much for having me. No, all good. Just yes, another crazy day in this world right now.
That's right. That's right.
But
Yeah, so thank you again. So before we talk about the emotions and the feelings and how we make it complicated in the world, um, what does back to basic mean to you?
what does back to basic mean to me? Um, Honestly, I think you summarized it in the intro. It's for me, back to basic is how can we find joy in the simple things in life and slow down our life to really the essentials and
Mm,
understand what is actually essential to us to feel fulfilled and in tune with ourselves, but also whole.
mm. Yeah, thank you again for that. Can I read what you actually wrote when I actually invited you on
Yeah,
the calendar,
yeah.
and I asked you that same question? So
Mhm.
what you said is stripping away the complicated of society and finding out what is the actual want from life. So
Mhm.
basically, I think what you were trying to say is, what do you want from life when it's too complicated?
Mm.
So I'm
Yeah.
going to go and ask you that question. So what are your thoughts on that?
Um, and I'm
It's quite
just thinking
complicated,
right
isn't
now.
it?
It is complicated, but it's most no, actually it's not. Like what do I want from life? I mean, let me start from that. Like what do I personally want from life? And
Mm,
what I want is to be able to wake up in the morning and just feel like I have a place in life and I'm doing the things that matter to me in a way that I have the feeling that it's impactful what I'm doing, but at the same time to know that I'm surrounded with people and have connections to people that matter to me. But maybe even make it even simpler, having the ability to go out during the day and have a coffee with someone where you have a delightful conversation and you just feel, you just feel like everything is all right. I don't know if that is simple enough, but it's not about wanting to have a fancy car,
that's
wanting
right.
to have fancy things, having a humongous to-do list and a plan for the entire year with all the things that you need to do in order to, cross them off your list. No, it's really about the simplicity of being able to be in the moment and just really enjoy the moment. Being in the moment, just to be the ability to be in every moment throughout the day.
Yeah, totally. I totally understand that. Thank you again for answering that question.
Mm,
There was an article that I read, I don't know how many days ago, but I'll tell you one thing. There was this one line which got me. Actually, the whole article got me, but I'll tell you this one comment, and there will be a whole other ones too, if you don't
mhm,
mind. One of them was that if you can fit it, you should fit in well.
mhm,
What that actually meant when I read that paragraph, and that was just a title, right?
mm,
What it actually means is that we're trying to fit into the society because it's too fast. We're trying to catch
mhm,
up.
mhm,
So do you think that we are losing ourselves sometimes and following the society the way it should be?
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, not just it's not just about losing ourselves by trying to fit into and trying to follow and chase the things that society is subscribing to us, but more even so, I don't think even that we know who we are from the start. So it's not just necessarily about losing, but more so about we're not giving ourselves or finding ourselves. So we're not giving ourselves the chance to find who we want to be, except for the moments when we realize we are just unable to keep up with the pace and the expectations. And quite often, unfortunately, that ends up in depression, anxiety, and, burnout. And leads, I'm a firm believer of it, that quite often, suicide is actually the result of the inability to speak up for yourself and speak up for what's happening within you. And this is a two-way, it's a two-way process, right? So the one thing is we are being born into a society, into a culture that we have not chosen, right? It just happens.
Right.
There's no way to control that.
There's a reason why I asked this question, is that
Yeah.
we're trying to catch up to impress others instead of
Are we?
or impressing ourselves. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
I don't know. Are we trying to? I don't know if we are necessarily trying. I'm not sure if we're trying to impress others. I think that maybe in the beginning we are, but at some point I think it becomes so much of ourselves. We take it on so much as our own identity and as our own wishes and goals, that it becomes almost scary to admit to yourself that this is actually not something that you want.
So let me ask you this here. Let's say if I go to a restaurant and I'm taking a picture of what I'm eating and then I post it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that I'm enjoying the whole process, or do I want to take that image and put it up there and see what people feel?
Mm.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it makes sense what you're saying. I mean,
So
at first you are, yeah,
I've stopped doing that for the last many,
yeah,
many years now, because I
yeah,
need to start enjoying what I've
yes,
ordered.
yeah,
Maybe I'll take the picture and I'll post it some other day, but
mm,
that day I just need to
mm,
enjoy it.
mm. It's, you know what, I have to tell you that I think it's an excellent question, because I do ask that question when I see photos of food. I'm like, what are you trying to achieve? Except if it's like a food account, right? If it's someone that is just really, talking about food, traveling for food and all of that, where it just really makes sense. But like those random moments, you're stripping yourself from the joy of being in that moment, right? Of smelling the food, of seeing the colors, of enjoying it in the moment with the temperature that it was served, because now you're taking this photo and you're making everyone stop, from, because most likely you are there at this table with other people. But the question is like, what are you trying to do? It's just a kind of like letting other people know what you're doing in that moment, to the purpose of what. And that's, you know what, so I don't think even that the people know why they are doing it. And the people that are commenting, let's say on posts like that, I also don't know if they're aware of the fact why they're even commenting on it.
Yeah, it's just like saying that I think we're just trying to impress on that. So yeah, so thank
Mm,
you again for that. When
mm.
people they come to you, what are the three top issues that they come to you for help?
It's burnout. Burnout is a top issue. That's usually the reason why they come. Then stress and anxiety are the other two following ones. But one of the underlying top issues that usually follows in a couple of sentences is the inability to feel joy again and be happy.
But
Um, yeah.
but when they're on a burnout and when they're, let's say, grieving or any of those things,
Mm.
what is the first thing that you ask them? Um,
I usually ask them to describe their daily routine, and just kind of like, where does the focus go to? Where does your energy go to? Because burnout means it's the lack of energy, right? We don't have the energy anymore to be who we want to be or to feel like ourselves. So I ask them usually kind of just to give me a description of their day. Like, what is it? How do you spend your time? And then I ask them if they do remember what their purpose is. Like, why did you even start doing these things? And quite often that's where it becomes clear that they lost sight of their purpose. They lost sight of what matters to them, because somewhere along the way they thought that they need to do specific things in order to gain capital, or specific status in society, in order then to achieve the things that they initially wanted to achieve. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
So, let me ask you this, right?
Yeah.
So basically, you're saying what I'm understanding. This is what I'm
Mhm.
understanding is
Mhm.
burnout actually means that you are not time managing yourself, and you're just going in a circle over and over again, and
Mm.
don't realize that you're in a burnout stage.
Mm.
Do you
Yeah.
think that we should plan out better?
No, so burnout is, so for burnout, I think that burnout is more so actually the you are doing things that you don't want to do. And by doing these things, you're moving your energy into a direction that is counter uh, productive towards where you actually want to go. So I think burnout is not just the mismanagement of time, but burnout is also a mismanagement of priorities and the moving away from your own values. Because,
Yeah,
like, if I may, just to add one more thing to it,
sure.
have you, and I'm going to just, let's say name a couple of really big names. Let's say we look at how Nelson Mandela was spending his time, or so some other important figures that were really giving their life and time to a specific cause, right? They were usually much more busier than a lot of people nowadays, but they were doing something that was fulfilling them. So you had a way to replenish your own energy, right? It's fulfillment, and energy comes through emotions. We have to always remember that emotions means energy in motion. So something is moving within you. So now, is that movement going towards something that is, an alignment with where you want to go? Or is it that you're doing just something because you believe that this is what you need to do according to society's norms? Second one leads to burnout.
So, okay, so thank you again for that. But the thing is, in the corporate world, everything is important. Everything is a priority. So,
It's-
how do we solve that problem?
yeah.
I mean, I'm talking to the folks who
Mhm.
corporate people, right?
Mhm.
But then even entrepreneurship, if you think about
Mhm.
it, they're also busy
Mhm.
too, and everything is at a priority, and everything needs to be
Mhm.
done yesterday.
Mhm.
So how do we resolve that issue?
The big question here is everything a priority, right? I mean,
Right.
it's I think it really starts with
Exactly.
that, like, really, what is the priority? Now, of course, in life we have to do sometimes certain things in order to really achieve specific goals, to be able to move forward, and the things that we need to do are not always pleasurable, right? I'm like, I don't know, I'm preparing my tax right now. Do I love preparing tax? Of course not. But here's the thing. I think in that midst of it, it's also a question of how do we communicate with one another? How do we interact with one another? And how do we set these priorities? So let's say a priority is to get three new clients. Okay, we need 3 new clients. Now, the process of selling is not necessarily something that is pleasurable to everyone, but there are people that love being in sales. So the people in corporate, especially specifically in corporate, it is so important that the task that you're doing on a daily basis that they are aligned with your own natural strengths. And by the way, there's a great website and it's for free. It's the VA Strength Test Finder. It has been developed by the Positive Psychology Institute in the United States, where you can just kind of like cross check. And the things that I'm doing, are they aligned with my own natural biological strengths? If there are, you are creating joy on a daily basis, or you're creating uplifting feelings, something that just makes you feel good. And if you feel good, you don't experience stress in a negative way. Stress is not just negative. Like, stress is also good, because the experience of stress, we need it in order to be able to perform better. Generally, stress helps us to find better solutions for problems. It helps us to hone into a specific problem with a maximum concentration, because it activates specific brain areas that help you to concentrate better. So keeping the levels of stress in a healthy area, but also in a positive way, is actually what we need to do, right? If you experience stress in a negative way, meaning you go to work and you're like, oh my God, today I have to go do this again, all over again, then you are interpreting the same stress but in a different way.
Yeah, yeah. The thing is, thank you again, by the way, for that. But the more and more you were talking about this, I think there's a difference between making priorities and making goals.
Mm.
And they're two different things, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the way you explained it, I think we should make sure that we tell people that there is a difference between priorities and goals, because people, they think it's kind of the same thing, because
Mm.
you're writing down the list, and these are my goals. Oh, wait a second, these are my priorities too.
Mm.
So I think people should have two different lists when it comes to not the burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Day-to-day priorities different than actual
Mm-hmm.
goals when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
business, I guess. Maybe I'm wrong. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I understand. It's a. You just pointed out something that's really important. I agree. I mean, let's say someone has a family with children, and he is a CEO of a company, or she is a CEO of the company, and her priority is actually to spend valuable time with her children, right?
Hmm.
But her goals are to maximize the profit of the company, in 2022. So
Hmm.
now that are two different things, because, well, I mean, spending time with her kids needs to be then turned into a goal.
Hmm.
It's because a goal means that you are going to be actively creating measurable steps and actions that bring you to that goal. Having
Hmm.
just that priority, saying my priority are my children, but then, spending 80 to 90 hours at work, right, is where that disconnect comes in.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
so it means your actions have to correspond with your values. So have to correspond with your priorities, because your priorities should be aligned with your values,
Hmm.
or your priorities are, technically your values.
Yeah, yeah.
So yes, I agree. It's but I do think that your priorities need to become your goals, or
Of
they have
course.
to be integrated in your goals, because the goals is what we are thriving towards. We are moving our actions towards. So yeah, I have to think about that a little bit longer. That's yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again. And guys, whoever is listening right now, I think the best way is to take a piece of paper, draw a diagram that what is priority for you, and you know what? Write down even the dates that you want to accomplish also, because
Mm-hmm.
then you want to also set your goals too at the same time.
Mm.
So don't get burnout. I think plan it out,
Mm.
and be ahead of the game instead of behind the game, and instead of catching up, just be the game. So that's my 2 cents, and maybe I'm not the expert in this, but this is what my observation is
Mm.
by talking to a lot of different people, including yourself. So thank you again for that. So let me ask you a question about you, if you don't mind. So
Mhm.
if I asked you a question, if you pick love or happiness, which one would you pick?
Hmm. I guess I would pick, honestly, happiness,
Hmm.
because I think that, so love, love is not an emotion, right? People
Hmm.
always say that love is an emotion and it's a feeling, but
Hmm.
love just means many different things, and quite often different things to different people.
Hmm.
Um, so when you're finding a partner, it's really important to understand if you have the same priorities and values, because that's how you can reflect your love.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
there's a great book on love, by the way, Love 2.0 by Barbara Fredrickson. Highly recommended. She really talks about, how we structure and understand love. But
Hmm.
happiness, and happiness is also actually not an emotion as such.
Hmm.
Joy is.
Hmm.
Happiness is
Hmm.
more a process. So we are creating happiness, and we are creating happiness through specific actions. So I think that if I'm happy, I'm also loving,
Hmm.
right? If I'm happy, if I'm joyful, that means I'm fulfilled. If I'm fulfilled, I have the energy to give. If I'm giving, that means that I am creating a space for others to feel recognized, feel accepted, feel in a place of safety, feel trusted. And
Hmm.
all of that then, accumulates to the result of feeling loved and accomplished in a sense, even.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah.
So, and one more question, if you don't mind. So,
Mhm.
you or others?
Um, Others,
Others meaning your friends, your
yeah,
family,
yeah,
your
yeah. So others,
spouse.
no,
Yeah.
others. I think, huh. I mean, I define myself through others,
Hmm.
and so it's always about others. I
Hmm.
think it's always about serving. And when it, by the way, well, interesting fact, when it comes to anxiety or depression or even burnout, well, burnout is a bit more complex, but when it comes especially to anxiety and depression, one of the strongest methods in combating it is to focus on how to serve others. So in
Hmm.
positive psychology, there's tremendous research that shows the moment we actually try to help others effectively, and not in a way of, oh, I'm pushing my own problems away and now let me just like focus on someone else, but
Hmm.
really, in alignment with your own priorities, also see how you can support other people, actually dissolve stress and depression.
Hmm. So basically, you're saying make other people happy, equally to yourself
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, and it can be even with, small examples such as there's another book. Sorry, you were quoting something.
No,
So
no, go for it. Go for it.
yeah, The Happiness Advantage. Great book. As for every leader, for every person that is in a management position or entrepreneur that has their own company. I mean, The Happiness Advantage is a must read, really.
Hmm.
But you also give small examples, right? When you are standing, for example, in the line at Starbucks and just do a random kind of random act of kindness, paying for the
Hmm.
next person's coffee,
Hmm.
and not even telling them who it is, but just kind of like doing these small things that create a smile on someone
Hmm.
else's face, um, because it creates the feeling of being interconnected, and we are all interconnected.
Hmm.
And if I may, but we see that right now, with the Ukraine crisis,
Hmm.
which my family is almost directly and affected in such a way that I have tons of family in Poland and they are helping right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's a tragedy. Tragedy. Damn it, I cannot pronounce the word.
You can say it. You
Yeah,
said it right.
thank
You
you.
said it right.
Yeah, and it is releasing so much trauma, right, for this entire region, because they do remember, everything that just happened 30 years ago. But I see that people are gaining so much energy through the ability of helping and providing and supporting and showing solidarity. I think it's this this human act of kindness that we are currently seeing is a grand scale example of what we should be doing actually on a daily basis. Just being aware of the people around you, being aware and being able to say, I see you. Seeing maybe, a woman driving the car and being stressed, and, instead of honking at them, just, creating a little bit of space, making a gesture of, oh, you know what, like, I see you, I think that de-escalates so many of the conflicting emotions within people. Like when you go, for example, in the supermarket and you're stressed and you're, like the day has ended and there's nothing that you can cook at home, and you're standing at the cashier and the cashier just looks at you and smiles and say, I hope you're going to have a great evening.
Yeah.
How that releases quite often so much pressure that we are building within ourselves. Or just, someone coming in, let me help you. Um, I think it's really about that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Thank you again, by the way, for that. Uh, there was a book that I was reading months back, and people I've heard this before because I've said this book many times because it's helped me many times.
Mhm.
Compound Effect.
Mm.
This is
Mhm.
one book that has definitely helped me in many different ways.
Mhm.
You know, take an example of Thanksgiving, and when we before we start eating, we usually say, "What are you thankful for?"
Mhm.
And the first thing that you say is your spouse's name, your kid's name, and
Mhm.
God, right?
Mhm.
Because we're
Mhm.
alive and we're thankful.
Mhm.
But are you thankful, or is that a cop out answer?
Mm.
So, compound effect has helped me to write down each day, even if it is a line or a word, that what are you thankful for today? And
Mm.
I wrote that. And then towards the end of the month, because it was a practice that I did,
Mhm.
and I'm like, wow, these are the things that I'm really thankful for.
Mhm.
So I would suggest whoever is listening here is do that practice, and I think you should do that too, doctor, and see
Mm.
that if it kind of works out for you.
Mm.
There are many other things in that book that has definitely helped me, but this one thing has definitely taught me a lot of things.
Mm.
So, so doctor, let me ask you this here: what is Zia Way method?
Ha! That's a great question. Hey, I wasn't prepared for that. But the Ziva Way method is made out of three values.
Hmm.
It's education and knowledge, empowerment and freedom. I believe that people need the knowledge. Well, you need the knowledge to understand that you have the power to create the freedom that you want in life. And so the method is combined of positive and social psychology as well as mindfulness techniques, and creates or helps people to create a strategy in order to build the life and career that you really want. I started working on that really in my early 20s when I decided that I don't want to live the life society has prescribed for me, and I'm not agreeing with many of these things. And I truly believed that there's a different way. I was very fortunate to have parents that said, whatever you do in life, do the things that bring you joy. You know, my parents came from socialistic Poland, where they grew up with so many restrictions around themselves, and they were really firm believers, and they are firm believers of course, you know, just do try to create the life that you want and do it on your own terms. Make sure that you are independent and free. You know, that part of freedom, I think that's just
Mm,
so important for people that have, yeah, survived. Just so many restrictions. So the Ziva way kind of like, you know, started developing really in my 20s, where I started developing my own meditation and yoga practice, and then I was studying sociology and psychology, and then, you know, went into my PhD in social psychology. And um, it is the accumulation basically of techniques and tools that I've used over the years for myself, but as well for my clients. And now is really a beautiful, solid structure, easily to use.
mm. Yeah. So thank you again for explaining that because when I saw that on the website and I said I
Mhm.
need to go and ask you about this whole thing that you're doing. So thank you again for
Mhm.
explaining that. So
Yeah,
what one last thing, if you don't mind, before you leave today,
sure.
how was your journey on Back to Basics, and how do you have any last words for all my listeners and viewers today on this show?
Yeah. Um, Journey on Back to Basics. You know what? I think one thing that everyone should do whenever, you know, create a little bit of time and space on a weekend and create a list, starting with everything that you have at home, and look at it from a perspective of, does it bring me joy or does it distract me? And I think that back to basics really starts with your own surrounding, your own home. We don't have a TV. We got rid of a TV now. Yeah, I mean, in 2011, so 11 years ago. I love not having a TV and not being like impacted with everything what's out there, but having the ability to choose where I get my news from, you know, and how I consume them. to the things of like, what are the items that you want to have? And then create a list with people, the people that bring you joy and the people that are generally, taking your energy, and create boundaries. Because I think Back to Basics is all about boundaries and essentialism. I really believe in essentialism. What is essential to you? And really going into the depth of understanding, like, this is something that I need, not to just to survive and be able to float in a monotone way through life, but to be joyful and be able to experience life with everything that it has to give, including also the pain. Because I really believe that if you are essential in your life, that you see also the beauty and pain and difficult emotions. You understand that they belong to a full and a whole life. Because if we don't experience difficult emotions, we are also not able to actually experience happy emotions and light emotions, right? There's always a circle. It's a dynamic circle. So create, maybe even on this weekend, Saturday or Sunday, depending on how the weather is, just stay at home, create a list, and go through your house, and maybe do, early spring clean. I'm a really firm believer of spring cleaning,
Yeah,
understanding what you need to get rid of in life.
yeah. So thank you again for explaining that, and thank you again for coming here and
Thanks so much.
supporting me on my podcast and talk
Yeah,
about the basics of emotions and love and happiness and I guess burnout and all the other stuff that we talked about today. So
yeah,
thank you again for coming here and supporting me.
yeah. Thanks so much for really having me. It has been a delight. Love your questions.
Oh, thank you again. Thank you. So, guys, we spoke with Dr. Ginga and we talked about the basics of feelings, emotions, and how life is so damn fast. How do we make that simple and basic and non complicated way? Now, obviously, there is a quote of the day from Back to Basics, and hopefully, my guest will like that quote. And here's a quote: if you think life is hard, keep going. Don't seek an easy life, seek strength. Now, that is true. We should look for strength. And that's what we're trying to do, to give you the power for the next you. Okay. Now, as usual, as always, what do I always say at my end of my episode? Everything in life goes back to basics. And that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care. God bless. Keep on commenting on all my episodes, including this one, because it helps me to understand that you guys are listening. Give me all the love and support that I need to make this show successful and this podcast successful. And there's three things, including this episode, makes always the best, which is the content, the guest, and definitely the host. Guys, take care. God bless. And I will see you next week on Back to Basics. Take care. God bless. Next week's episode on Back to
there we
Basics.
had a house fire. I woke up and saw the flames coming in my bedroom. So
Hmm.
that was one more big trauma. And then at the age of 9, when we were living in Hong Kong, I was sent to boarding school in England. But I was sent to a boys' boarding school. I was the first girl boarder at a boys' boarding school. And I was teased horrifically for 2 years there. Then going into my teenage years, both of my parents became alcoholics. So it was hell. I said to myself, it feels like I'm living in hell here, because one would start drinking during the day, then the next one would start drinking. My mum would